All right.
I,
I'm talking on policies, academic recording policies changing after COVID.
okay, okay. I'm glad I remembered the time zone.
Likewise.
I can't say that I remembered it like as early as I should have.
Okay, guys, we're started.
Okay,
And we're just gonna give everybody a few minutes to come back in here. And then we'll get things going.
perfect. Thanks for doing this, Elmer.
Hey, John, how are you?
Oh, no
Hey,
problem.
John.
Donna, mute the audio up there, please.
Mute that audio? Yeah, that audio. All right. Ooh. See the back of my head. It ain't pretty.
Ah,
Don't turn your back to the camera. Yeah, we'll give it about, I'll give it like 2 more minutes and then we'll get going because people are just coming back in still.
All the recorded assay came up with this is your ego.
The vegan banana bread?
This is horrible.
Ooh. Yeah. These 4 pounds of sugar.
We're gonna eat like 5 more spoonfuls and put it aside. Check out me later. Yeah. Eat that place. You guys made it.
Everyone's getting up and going. Yeah, because we're about to start.
John? Mint flavor. You are smell.
Chocolate chip loose tracks is my favorite ice cream now.
There's always room for the mint.
Nobody wants to talk about what games they're playing, but they won't talk about what ice cream they're eating.
I play one game. I play Words with Friends. That's it. If anybody needs somebody to play against who nobody else will play against, I like to play against you. You know what I mean? I look at you. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Get that up with you because do people get that up with you? Are you in?
I'm in.
You
were divorced by the Yeah, all that was recorded, so there's that. Okay, so we're ready to get going. Matt Bachstack is, or I hope I probably just
Close enough.
He's going to talk about adapting technology to meet changing academic recording academic. There you go. So yeah, you should be able to share your screen and stuff, Matt. You're ready to go.
Yep. Perfect. So about me, I'm the head of instructional technology here at GW Law. Part of the Innovative Technology Services Department of the Law Library. I manage the instructional Office of Instructional Technology, where we maintain 53 classrooms over 7 buildings. 3 full-time staff members and 10 part-time employees are under me. I manage all the instructional technology for the law school as well as the law school's Zoom domain. So COVID was a disruption and a catalyst for change. I mean, that could not be underscored, right, as we all sit here post-pandemic. So I want to kind of go over a timeline of events as far as the academic recording policy, the technology, and COVID, and how all of these 3 things kind of came together. So where were we pre-pandemic? So in pre-pandemic, we were in good shape technology-wise at the law school. We had an automated video recording system in all 53 classrooms. All the recordings were captioned and transcriptions were provided to all of our students that had access to the recordings. We have multiple cameras, multiple microphones, web conferencing capability in all the classrooms. We didn't have Zoom, but we did have Google Meet. And the law school, GW Law was really just starting to look into online learning. We had a pilot online program launched for an online LLM in government procurement. So most of our faculty had zero experience with teaching online. Pre-pandemic, the recording policy was basically based off of a student makes a request. If the request is approved by the Dean of Students office, a recording would be scheduled for that one student. So it could be 100 people in the classroom, one person had an emergency and the Dean of Students approved it, and they would schedule the recording, and only that one student could watch that recording of the class. Another aspect of the policy, faculty could request a recording for a student or for the entire class if they want it. For example, review sessions right before finals, the faculty normally will call my office and say, record my class and let all of my students have access to that recording. If a student has a reason that is not deemed by the Dean of Students approved reasons, for example, I missed my bus, the student could contact the faculty member could put the request in to have their class recorded with that student having access to the recording. So that was pre-pandemic. So why was the recording policy this way? Faculty strongly believed that there was no substitution for in-person classroom experience. Recording should only be used as a last resort for situations if in-person attendance was not possible. And this recording policy was kind of long in the tooth, and there's technology limitations that were at play here. Storage, bandwidth, we're a very large law school, and also how to automate a class recording schedule with that many classes. So in academic year 1920, we managed 3,253 academic recordings with that policy in place. So it takes us to the initial response. So in March, an email was sent to the students on March 7th saying that every law school class will be recorded and made available to all enrolled students for a period of 2 weeks. We all kind of laughed because we knew it was not going to be for 2 weeks. It was going to be much longer. A week later, GW switched to all virtual learning and temporarily closed the campus. Challenges to overcome. We had to get our faculty on board with overcoming technology burdens to teach classes virtually. We got in front of the faculty. We gave them tools to create asynchronous learning modules for their classes in March of 2020. We used Kaltura Capture. We enabled it on our Kaltura instance for all faculty members, so faculty members could create these create these asynchronous modules and easily give them to their students. And we purchased Snagit, a large group of licenses of Snagit for all of our librarians. And then one other thing was we put in place a ticketing system so that we could integrate both our IT departments and our academic technology departments so we could work together on the same ticket over complex issues. And this will, sped things up when problems occurred, because some of these problems were blurry, right? Where there's an IT problem, or is it an academic technology problem? So by combining a ticketing system, we were able to troubleshoot. That summer, we did online training, student engagement in the online environment, and created modules for instructional technology, or for online instruction. GW, they led a week-long workshop to assist faculty with transitioning from face-to-face to online. And of course, Cali, you guys had your summer course that year, which I know some of our faculty did attend. Over that summer, we invested in Zoom. We bought Zoom. We bought polling technology. We bought Poll Everywhere because our faculty wanted to be able to have some type of engagement with their online learners. We also then made connections with Zoom to our LMS to Kaltura, which is our media server, so we can streamline the recording process for virtual learning. and it kind of looked like this. We used appoint links course sites for our LMS, so the faculty could schedule a Zoom, and it automatically talked to Zoom. Zoom would know, hey, that's a faculty member. We have all these default settings that they can't change, like automatic recording, automatic naming, all of that. Sends it to Kaltura, which then our staff can move them into folders that students could access these recordings. So then that takes us to academic 2021. Look at these stats. The stats started flying in during the first full semester of virtual learning in that fall. It showed an increased number of recordings were being viewed by students. I mean, the numbers were outstandingly high. We're talking about 3 times higher than what they were years prior. And then during the exam period, students were rewatching certain parts of videos, so we could dive down that deep into the statistics and find out that these students were watching for key parts of these lectures that they were having problems with, and this would help prepare them for the finals. The students loved having access to all class recordings. In FY or academic year 2021, we managed over 10,000 academic recordings. That's 3 times more than any years prior. It was insane how many recordings we were managing. And all of these have to be touched by a person to make the system work. So where are we now? Summer of 2021, I was asked, can we record all face-to-face classes? So the quick answer was yes. Technology is currently in place for us to do that. However, how do we automate all of the scheduling of all of the classes so that it would record automatically? So this is the solution that we came up with. All the classes are scheduled within a room reservation system that can flag conflicts. Data from the room reservation system could be exported as a CSV file. By manipulating these files, we could create a new data set that could be used in a way to configure the data into a bulk scheduling CSV for Kaltura. And that's how we sent all of the schedule up to the video recorders. So we were able to automate the entire scheduling of all classes. So proposed changes. So once when this hurdle was done or met, there was proposed changes for the academic recording policy. So during that summer, after we showed them a way for us to do it, they drafted a proposal. It had to be approved by the faculty, but it addressed the ability to proactively schedule and record all face-to-face classes, the ability for faculty to automatically release all class recordings to their students, and an option for faculty to continue using the old recording policy. Also included was defining the time that the recordings were accessible for the students at the end of the semester. That was something that was not in the old policy. Addressing the global recording policy if we ever had to go back to virtual learning, and defining a web conferencing platform if we ever had to go back to virtual learning. So these were the things that we threw into this policy when we had a chance to help us for the future. So first thing the faculty have to do is choose their adventure, right? They have 2 questions: allow automatic recording of all classes, which is the default, or do not automatically schedule recordings of my classes. Obviously, the administration wants the faculty to choose one, but the faculty have the option of 1 or 2. After they answer that question, they can then have to answer this question: automatically release all class recordings to my students. That's the default again. Do not automatically release any recordings, and have the dean of students only release recordings for a pre-approved reason. So that would be the old policy. Or 3, do not automatically release any recordings, and the faculty member will decide the release of any recordings to students. So that's a twist off of 2, where the faculty member has total control over their recordings. Mind you, obviously any DSS situations will override number 3. So in late August, the faculty approved the recording policy changes, and they were put in place mid-fall 2021 semester after that. And that's all I have, as I blew through this lecture in hopefully 15 minutes.
And I have a question, which I'll save for the end, but up next, we've got Tom Ryan, who's been coming to this conference for like 100 days. And possibly, well, for a very long time. He's not wrong. And looking around the room, Tom's probably probably one of the longest attendees. I know he hasn't been to every one of this conference. Here's Tom, who's going to talk about.
Get the so I'm a Mac user these days, so I'm like, I think I gotta share it, right?
Here we go. You're minimized so you don't get to the settings.
Here. Oh, there we go. And now I can share my screen and I can pick my presentation. Oh, I want to share sound. I do want to share sound. Yes, indeed. The other screen. Perfect. Okay. All right. And I start my video. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you. My topic is masks making it hard to hear, right? Obviously, I'm sure as people started coming back into the classroom, there was a lot of concern about whether or not that was in fact the case. So I just want to say briefly, Elmer mentioned I might have been coming here for a long time, and I have. My first conference was in 1995. I missed a few over the years, but one thing that's always been true and was true again today is I've always been inspired when I've come to the conference. And so I hope that my talk today, while an interesting and I think novel idea, I hope it inspires all of you to think about how you can use technology to solve some difficult issues. Why doesn't spacebar work? Slides. Okay. So, masks are making it hard to hear students. On August 6, 2021, the Chancellor's office came to me and said, oh, we've got all these questions, faculty are concerned they can't hear students in the classroom. We're not getting, just some background, we have classrooms that have hundreds of seats. I do IT for the entire campus, not just the law school, and we have very large rooms, and students are, obviously, there's some concern that they wouldn't be able to be heard. But was it really an issue? Were faculty perceiving a problem when in fact somebody else would say, no, that really wasn't an issue, right? And so that was the first thing. We had to look at that and say, is this really an issue, right? Because we all know what it sounds like when you have a mask on, what doesn't have, what it sounds like when you don't have a mask on. So gratefully, University of Illinois actually did some research on it, which I thought was pretty nice, right? They did some research, they published it, and they talked about how different face masks impact audio from the student. And so it was like, okay, they did a little bit of testing. Well, as it actually turns out, they did a lot of testing, right? And so they tested basically every type of mask that I think is possible and how that impacted the ability to hear that person speak. All right. And so obviously what they concluded, which I think everyone would obviously conclude, is that masks do impact audio and make it harder for you to hear students speaking. And so, okay, so now we're in August and we're looking at this. We realize that this is in fact the problem. What are we going to do to solve it? Well, this is how we used to do it, right? We used to do it with putting a microphone at every single seat. Or we put microphones in the ceiling. Or in some cases, we just put back. We were like, we only cared about amping the faculty member. How many of you purchased like personal portable microphone devices for your faculty members during the pandemic? We bought a whole bunch of them from Amazon, right? I'm sure everybody else did. And they were horrible, mind you, but it was a way that even in small classrooms that we would never consider amplification in before, we were able to add amplification. So that was how we used to do it. We really didn't think that was going to work, and we'll talk about the reasons. Obviously, everyone knows how much that costs to do, and if you have over 100 classrooms, it's not really practical. Another thing we looked at was something I believe we demoed at Cali years ago. This was Catchbox, right? And so Catchbox, right? Remember?
We're tossing it around.
Yeah, we're tossing it around, right? I don't know if anyone's familiar, but that was pretty cool. It's innovative, right? It costs a lot of money, and it requires installation, And so how does it work, right? Maybe the term catch box doesn't make it seem like what it is, but basically this is what it is. You throw it around. And you hope that the guy, if you look at this guy, I don't think he's going to catch it, right? I don't think he's going to catch that box. Look at his eyes, right? He's not looking anything at that. I think that was edited after the fact. They were throwing like a beer to him or something. They edited it out. They put a catch box in there. Okay, look at how small that room is, right? I think, okay, maybe that will work there. But in reality, is it going to work there, right? Could you imagine throwing that around that room, right? I think the catch box, one of their solutions was just buy more of them, right? You have more of them in the room. And I thought, well, that's not going to help. This is going to be incredibly expensive to deploy, batteries and charging and everything else. And so none of them were practical. The way we used to do it and the catch box solution, let's be honest, they take, revamping your classroom and adding technology to your classroom is going to be incredibly expensive. Maybe if you're a small school and you have 7 classrooms, you might be able to do it, right? But even then, you might be spending $100,000 to put microphones in every seat in that building. That's just not practical. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this talk is because I think we can all basically agree now that masks are here to stay. They're not going to go away. They're going to come in waves. They're going to leave. In fact, my school still has a mask mandate for students in the classroom. We have not lifted it yet. And some of the other schools that have reinstated it, at least in New Jersey where I am. And obviously you must line and see CDC recommendation. So again, not a practical thing. Would take a long time to implement. And remember, we got the request on August 6th, and you'll see why that's important in a second as we get along. So then I had this idea. I said, wait a minute, how can I solve this problem? I know one thing to be true, right? I know that if a student leaves their house in the morning to come to the classroom and forgets their textbook, are they going home to get it? Absolutely not. But if they forget their phone, they're turning around. They're going back and they're getting their phone because that's how they live their daily life. And more importantly, it's a smartphone because let's be honest, for some reason, all of our students have a smartphone, right? We know that. So here's a device that they have. We know they have it. I should have set a timer before I started talking because I really want to get through this in 15 minutes because I want you to see. We're going to play with it when we get to the end. But anyway, so we knew we had that. And it was a good idea. It was something we could use. But here's the problem. Costs of innovation. We all know this. The build versus buy, right? I'm a developer. I've written code over all the years, and I'm smart about that. I realize that sometimes building your own solution is not the best way to do it, right? Sometimes it costs more to build it in the long term than it is to buy it. So aimed with that, I did the next best thing. I started Googling to see, hey, maybe someone else has solved this problem with this thought process. And what I found was CrowdBox by Binary. There is a hardware solution that you can buy that lets you use your cell phone as a microphone and connect it to your audio system in the classroom. Right? Oh, wait, just wait. We're impressed. I guarantee it. So, okay, guess what? August 6th. We now have that box in our office. We're demoing it on our network. It works exactly as advertised. It's $1,500. Okay, but it's a little device. You plug it in, you get it. Solution? Maybe. What did we find out after playing with it, though? We found out it was another impractical solution. And here's why. Every time you use it, you have to go in, and you can go to their website now that you all saw that. You can look it up. You can see that you have to go in and you have to configure it. You have to say, I have an event. It's going to be at this time. You got to put in all that data. So what is CrowdMics really good for? Events, right? It's not something that a faculty member is going to go in and be like, I'm going to type this in. I'm going to hit the start button. I'm going to do this. There is one school, I won't name them to shame them, that has bought a few of these, and they have like 7 pages of directions to the faculty member, okay, about how to start it and use it. And the big lie is, because I've used it, If a student forgets to hit stop or their phone dies, the moderator, I don't know who that is, I don't think it's a faculty member, has to go in and turn off that user so the next person can talk. All right, so it's impractical and it costs a lot of money. So maybe we have to create a new idea. Maybe we have to think outside the box. And so that's what we did. All right. We had your phone. We already know everybody has their phone. And for those of you that know me, know that I dabbled a little bit in video and audio over the years. And so we had Wow's streaming engine. All right, Wow's streaming engine, we already owned it. You can buy it, perpetual license, for about $1,000, one license. That's all you need. And do you know what's really cool about your cell phone and about Wow's streaming engine, which by the way, perpetual license? What's really cool about both of them? They both support something called Webrtc. Right? Webrtc. Anybody know what that is? Anyone want to guess what RTC stands for? Elmer, want to guess? Real-time communications. So imagine this. Imagine that the students have a phone that supports Webrtc. And we have Wowza that supports Webrtc. Maybe we can glue them together and we can come up with a novel solution that we can deploy through a couple clicks to 150 classrooms and have the ability to use your cell phone as a microphone in all the classrooms. And maybe we built it with push to talk. And so it's just you push, you go, someone hits push after you, they override you. Because we thought in a classroom, you can have some fun, you can talk nicely, you can kind of set the tone and do all that. Do we think that this is possible? Hint, hint. Do we think that this is possible? Yes, it is in fact possible. And so this is what it looks like. Notice the date, September 13th, 5 weeks after the request from the Chancellor's office. 5 weeks later, we not only did all the research, brought in a demo of an external product we can wait to get shipped to us, test it, determine it didn't work, and then send it back and finish deploying our software and having it deployed to all of our classrooms. We did it in 5 weeks time. Now, pretty cool, right? Who wants to play with it? Oh yeah. Who wants to try it right now? All right. So here we go. We're going to demo it. So everyone that's remote, you get to play too. I'm going to tell you right now, I came in this morning into this classroom and I demoed it, but I have to stop screen sharing. I'm going to pop over to Chrome where we're going to share it there and we're going to try this out. So give me a second. Go back over here and stop sharing. Okay. And I want to come over to here. And don't worry, people are remote. I'll get the share up in a second. All right. Let's go over to here. Now, just to level the understanding of what's going to happen here. If you participate either in the classroom or remotely, your audio is going to traverse over the network to Rutgers in New Jersey. It's then going to come back over here to Chicago and come out over the speakers, which will then be picked up and sent back to the people in Zoom and then sent back to where they are listening. So temper your expectations about real-time communications. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. All right, so now I got that back up. Let me find my share screen and let's share this. And okay, there it goes. All right, so now we, of course, are going to have these QR codes and you scan it, right? And now if you read it, it'll tell you have to say connected.
That's testing.
There
we go!
What do you think? You talk over me. Yeah, to get the press and hold the talk. Come on, read the directions. Did you just hear me? So listen how many people are bouncing around. You see it bouncing? So here, wait, I gotta ask everyone, stop using it for a second. Let's pretend we're in a classroom and I'm gonna call on someone. All right, look at all this bouncing. All right, so Greg in the back, you're calling. Let's hear you.
Hi, Professor Ryan. I just downloaded this and I can't tell if it's working or not.
Okay, all right. Where are we? Are we impressed? Are we inspired? Thank you very much. I hope you very much enjoyed the presentation. I hope that you learned something cool. Have a good one.
Thank you, Tom. That was really cool. Yeah.
Okay. What do you want me to do here? Stop the video.
Yeah, I think you can just leave it just like that.
Just leave it like that. All right.
We've got Billy Joe next, and you're going to tell us about the evolution of podcast, talking away. So take it away, Billy Joe.
Thank you, everyone. And that was inspiring. That's really the great thing about Cali. Well, some of your schools were remote for a very long time. At Mercer University Law School, we really were back face to face in fall of 2020. So a number of us didn't seem to have enough to do. So a couple of faculty members said, we think we'd like to start a podcast. And so with everything going on with pandemics, we started a podcast. And I'm going to share that with you and hope that some of you get the idea. I know many of you already participate in podcast, either with individual faculty or with other players at your school. And so I'm going to share that with you. And then I know that I stand within just a few moments of happy hour and other fun events tonight in Chicago. So we'll make sure that I stay within my time. And let me see if I can get this to the slideshow. So why would you choose a podcast? Well, it's a pretty popular format. ABA has their podcast network, which is called Legal Talk. And it's used highly in the profession. It's used a lot in legal education, a lot with lawyers and beyond. So we thought everyone sort of now gets what a podcast is. So that's what we'll choose. It's also great for commuters at the gym, on a flight. There's many different kinds. So people are used to listening to maybe art history or some specific substantive topic, and they're easily discoverable. You can market them. You know, everyone knows that term wherever you get your podcast. It's an audio format, so it's a little bit lower startup cost. Not too much support's necessary. And guess what? Because we were teaching online, we had microphones, headphones, everything that we needed to get this going pretty quickly. We share it on all social media, and it's easy to reshare. So that makes a podcast a great format too. There were several other podcasts at Mercer, so our university adapted to our doing one too. We have one on Health Beats because we have a medical school. There's one at the business school. So it worked well here with our own communication network at the university. So Talking Legal Ed began. This is a group of legal educators who enjoy learning about new and innovative teaching approaches. And we're asking folks to join us as we discuss cutting edge topics in the law. But the most important is how we explore those topics and incorporate them into our classroom. And this became a topic that I was really interested in because I'm a little bit older than some of you, and I was in law school when Robert Bork was coming before the Supreme Court nomination hearings. And in my constitutional law class, with a very strong constitutional scholar, that topic was never mentioned at all in my class, and I just kept thinking that's peculiar. And so we're hoping that students will never say, you know, why aren't they talking about X or Y in my classroom when it's happening in the law? So we've invited law professors, law librarians to have conversations with us about generally hot topics and how they can cover those in the curricular coverage of their own substantive topic. So how do we choose topics and how do we find talent? We follow Facebook. We look at AA Less's speaker postings at panels, symposium, people we know, people that we've heard on panels that are recognized scholars, are good instructors. Sometimes we find a hot topic and then we try to locate a possible speaker. And that's worked out really well as well. Sometimes people will say, I think you ought to ask Professor X or Dean Y. They've got a lot to say about this. We have a pretty organized system where we send a basic email and then tell them a little bit about Talking Legal Ed, why we're interested in hosting them for an episode. But then we schedule a pre-interview, we schedule the taping, do our follow-up edit work, and add it to the podcast site. This pre-interview has turned out to be huge and very, very important. This piece of work helps us talk through the topic or topics. It helps us focus the conversation. We develop a list of possible questions for the interview, and we get to know that speaker so that the podcast can sound like a conversation. We don't want this to be scripted. It's not nearly as interesting to listen to. And we found that when we have speakers that are more scripted, it makes editing a lot more work. And so this pre-interview sometimes changes the focus a little bit, sometimes changes the topics we want to cover. But the pre-interview has proved out to be really a huge, significant piece. It's a podcast, and because we don't want anything scripted, we do correct with small ethics, but we try not to do anything too major. We also learn a lot more about the topic so that when we're actually doing the recording, our questions and our part of the conversation adds meaning to that exchange. We've created that time. We send the Zoom links to everybody involved. We begin the taping. We use this chat feature sometimes for production folks to talk back and forth to us. Sometimes if we know something didn't get picked up right, we'll actually stop and pick it up because we can correct that in the editing. We have a basic introduction and a basic conclusion, and we have intakes and outtakes so that the podcast has some kind of formality at the beginning and the end. We do our final editing, and you can meet Tim Shipshock, who's at Cali, and he can tell you that about his work specifically, and then it gets posted. So technical needs, headphones. I think you've all got headphones or know how to get headphones, but if you are interested in the ones we chose, I'd be happy to share those. Same thing with microphones. We use the Logi camera when we use a camera, just that we use for our classes and Zoom links. We got most of our equipment through Amazon, so there was very, very limited startup cost. It's housed at anchor.fm. It's a free hosting site. Our faculty member, Professor Ritchie, looked at several and we chose this one. And you see this free word. You can create and distribute and monetize your podcast all for free. We started out with Buzzsprout. There were some technical problems and some other platforms that we really felt would be better. But be careful and see what free includes. Sometimes you get so many episodes or you get so much time. So just make sure that every hosting service will allow you to upload to the major distribution platforms, Apple, Spotify. Make sure that you're editing. We used Audacity and Adobe Audition. Tim may be using another editing software as well. And we did our intro and outro work with Fiverr.com. We sent them some scripts, and they have voice over audio, and they sent our work back to us. So that was something that we did outsource. Marketing, the name and the artwork, the Talking Legal Ed, just happened because that's what we were doing. We were talking about legal education. And thanks to Professor Jellum's daughter, she did our artwork. And we've been able to use that artwork in a lot of different ways, both in advertising and sharing our podcast. We posted on all the typical podcast outlets, Facebook, listservs. We repost. Many times our speakers have their own podcast, so they will post it on their outlet because we're trying every time we post to get a really broad coverage to entice people to listen. And then we often repost. So this is a shot from Apple Podcasts. These show our episodes that are up and ready. We just reposted episode 7, Protecting Democracy, with Congressman Jamie Raskin. If you're not doing anything fun in Chicago this evening, hearings starts tonight. And we thought that people might want to hear that podcast again or for the first time with his work on that particular committee. Just like everything else, there's challenges. Sometimes we can't find the right talent for the right topic. Sometimes the topics don't play out exactly. They're a better newscast paper topic or a better TV topic than they turned out to be a podcast topic. And then sometimes there's just challenges with scheduling. Everyone's calendar gets backed up. There's midterms, there's grading. Sometimes we can do it, but the talent can't. So we just work through that and try to create some flexibility. The opportunities have been terrific. Our schools have not been like they were pre-pandemic. We don't have water cooler conversations like we used to. We don't have meetings and things like we used to. So these have been great conversations among colleagues. It's given voice to some hot topics in another medium. We've been able to use them in classes where the topic's appropriated, and we can repost them when that topic resurfaces. So the collegial efforts have been terrific for all of us to work together, and each person has their specific role. We hope to involve other people as guests, other faculty members, other law schools, deans. We haven't had a dean speak about a topic yet, or officers of organizations, even student bar members, et cetera. So I think we still have a lot of topics and a lot of people that we can use and share with our talent. If you have any questions, please contact any one of us. We'd be happy to speak with you. We highly encourage it. You may have a topic, and just decide on, do you want to do one a month, once every 6 weeks? How do you want to do it? I wish you all well. I wish you a great reception, and thanks for letting me share our evolution of the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Billy Joe.
Any questions? I think you really need to go to your reception.
Well, yeah, I do have, well, I don't have online says, well, nobody can see this except me, but nobody online asked any questions. So we have that. And I had one question that occurred to me that I wanted to ask Matt, which is you set up all these defaults to automatically record, automatically release to the students. Are the faculties just using, are the faculty members just using the defaults, or are they going in and using some of the other options?
No, they're definitely using the other options. The default record all, release all is maybe 40% of our faculty.
Okay.
Most, probably a good 45% of our faculty are still using the old recording policy, and then there's a whole bunch of middle ground. Some of that is skewed though because of our adjuncts. We have a lot of adjuncts that are in the national security realm. They don't ever want to be recorded, ever. So we that large population, that whole program, pretty much all of them have opted, don't automatically record me and don't ever record me unless if you have to by for an accommodation.
Okay. That was interesting. Yes, in the back.
Matt, this is Paul from the University of Richmond. I had another question for you. After the 2021, 2020 and 2021 academic year, did faculty opinion of recordings change?
Yes.
And did more faculty speak out against recording than before?
So there was definitely a change, right? I don't believe that we were on a path for that academic recording policy that was in place long before I came on board. And I've been in GW for 7 years. We were on a path that that policy was never going to get changed. The pandemic happened. The students were very vocal, especially when they announced we're coming back to campus for fall 2021, and everything is back to normal. We're not doing hybrid learning. We're not doing Zooms in the classroom. We want you in person. And the university went through great lengths to make it as safe as possible. Like, we get tested bi-weekly for COVID. We have to swab our noses, and if you're positive, they deactivate you from building access for 2 weeks. And then those recordings are then used for those students. And that was one of the reasons why we had to find a way to record all for that scenario. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. I was in the faculty meeting when it went up for debate, and there was a bunch of faculty members who pre-pandemic I know would have not budged on this, that after hearing the student SBA president and other students present, changed their minds totally and voted to change the recording policy to at least offer that, even if they're not going to do it themselves, they wanted to offer it for the other faculty members.
Actually, I'm saving you for last. Go ahead, ask Matt, because the next one's the Tom.
Hey, Matt, was there any blowback on your policy discussions after those after the Georgetown law professors were got in trouble for their recordings supposedly after the class had ended?
There was a lot of debate about that, right? I mean, Georgetown's right down the street from us, right? And a lot of our faculty members are friends with Georgetown faculty members. So there was a lot of debate about that. And I must have been asked that question about 100 times by faculty at different periods of time. No matter how secure our system is, and our system is rather secure, you have to have a law ID to access the video, and they're accessed only by person, right? Not by groups of people. But at the end of the day, if somebody watches the recording and puts their phone up and hits record, it's going to be done. But what stops them from doing that in the classroom, right? Some of our classrooms are very large, and some of them they could easily sneak into the back of the room with a video camera and do it. So I think that it's something that was on their minds, but in the end of the day, I think giving the students access to the materials to help their learning was more important than their own personal fears.
Cool.
All right, and then there was a question in the chat here for Tom. Is there any pushback either from the faculty? Well, we'll skip the whoever, but from the students who can't afford a smartphone.
So, yeah, this is actually, so when I was trying to figure out 15 minutes and how much you can talk about in 15 minutes, one of the things I wanted to talk about was usage of the system, right? To kind of paint that bigger picture, like how many people are using it. And it turns out that our biggest audience is not. So we've been on this big push to develop applications that could be used across the university system. Our biggest users are actually New Brunswick and New York. They use it significantly more than we do, which I thought was odd, but then I realized they larger effect. especially in New Brunswick, we have 400 seat classrooms, 450 seat classrooms, and so it makes much sense for them. In Camden, the law school used it, and quite a few professors who used it a lot, and they had students. You know, when I talk to the dean of students about it, and we talk about things that students will find a way to afford, I'm not really sure we have any students who don't have a smartphone. I would be surprised if there's, and again, I'm just saying this, I'd be surprised if there were places that do not have it, do not have smartphones. There might be some students who don't have them. And again, we have other solutions too. So if someone came back and said, oh, we needed that, we would be able to solve it for that. Absolutely. We do have some old iPod touches. For those that aren't familiar, Apple gave up on that device, stopped making it. But we still have quite a few of them. We can lend them out to the students who needed that, that accommodation request for whatever reason. We would lend that to them. And you can also use your laptop to use the same functionality. You don't just have to use your phone. As I said, my Webrtc is built into the browser. So you can use your phone, and we have a way to do that, to use your laptop as well. And we have a laptop requirement to enter our law school, like a lot of other law schools do, which they could technically use that. But we did not get any call.
I moved up here, John, just to fool you. Do you have another question?
Yeah, that's one. Hey, Tom, so you had to write some glue scripts, and shell scripts to make it all work together?
Yes.
You know, which one?
So this is the technical part, and I labeled my thing as a beginner class because I didn't want to scare everyone. If you read my description, I will say.
You read the Python.
So you would need a developer that would do it. But basically, the way it works essentially is when the professor, so there's a change that needs to be made on Chrome to make it work. But that change can be pushed out via group policy. And so that's how we push that out. So we didn't go visit all of our machines. We pushed out a group policy change. Basically, what that does is it lets Chrome play audio in the background. That's the trick to get it to come in without you having to hit approve. And that's because Chrome and all the major vendors have changed their browser. It doesn't just start playing audio. People were annoyed by that.
Yeah.
So you have to make that change that says specifically that our site is allowed to do that. So I did that change before the presentation to make Chrome do that. And then when the app is called, so I opened that app to work from Chicago Penn. It calls into our script on our server, which makes an API call to Wowza to create a one-time Webrtc conference. And then when you get that QR code, it runs another script which uses Webrtc JavaScript on your phone or your laptop to create that real-time communication. We open up the microphone. You saw prompts for those of you who tried it. Don't need prompts for you to have access to the microphone. It then establishes a connection. And when I originally wrote it, I tried to skip that. I didn't want to open up 900 connections to the server, but then I realized that's exactly how Zoom and WebEx and everybody else works. There's that delay when you start Zoom. It's establishing the connection. And then those of you trying to saw that there's a little bit of a delay, maybe a second or so, as it tries to make the connection. I didn't want you to have to do that every single time. You press the button to talk. And so I open the connection. I show you that status that's connected. When you say press and hold to talk, what that does is, again, it sends Ajax to the, everyone knows what Ajax is, I hope. If not, it's a way to do some communication, let's just say, to the server. It then tells the server, like the desktop computer in the classroom, to start playing that person's audio stream. Okay, and then the next person goes in, it tells the machine, stop playing that audio stream, play this audio stream. And when we wrote it, I talked about doing moderating and queuing and everything else in the software, but I wanted something that was easy for the faculty member. All they have to do is, in all of our classrooms, we have an icon on the desktop. They just double click it. If you read the screen, it says leave this open, because again, Chrome will stop network activity to that tab and goes to the background. It's not the active tab. So you have to leave it as an active tab, and we say that on the bottom. And as long as you leave that up, it will keep communicating to the server, and one at a time. So yes, the staff member has to control the classroom. They can call individual people, and then they can talk. But if somebody interrupts them, they interrupt them, as we saw quite actively today when we're interrupting everybody else. But I chose that on purpose because I wanted something that a faculty member did not need to know anything other than how to double click to get it to work. And I wanted something that the students, and so what I didn't say, again, I only had 15 minutes. When we went into the classroom to show it to the leadership team of the campus, there was 2 law students sitting in the classroom. And they, while I was demonstrating it, took out their cell phones and clicked on it and started talking. And we're like, wow, this is really cool with their masks on. But it was, like I said, it took 5 weeks. And so my real hope from it was 5 weeks. I think that there was cool ways to do it. That's great.
Johnson is an open source.
I would tell you what, yes. So I'm a big fan of that, and so I'm going to tell you right now that so I have a problem with it, which is that it is not. It does not exist, right? There's, I know because I Googled, like, I'm trying to find. There are people at the university doing that. And so I need to finish those conversations.
Yeah, sure. It's a go.
No. The idea. I know, shh, don't tell anyone. I might have done it on purpose. Wait, am I being recorded? So I can't do it. So I'm a fan, for anyone who knows me, knows for a long time, I'm a fan of open source. I think that this is a tool that can be used to against all institutions. I don't.
Doesn't mean you can't probably.
He's got to negotiate with his university.
All right. It could be, that is, or it could be a great asterisk. Big asterisk.
Very good. We're done for the day. Building opens at 8 and the coffee is supposed to be available at 8. We'll see how that goes for us. We're starting a little bit earlier tomorrow, right? The first session is at 9 a.m. That was a plan. That was like, you know, we're very heady.
So we can go. It will be done by noon. It's shortest. No, actually.
Right now.
Right now. Thanks, guys.